All right, folks. Sorry about the hold up. I got sick. Caught the flu last week, so I wasn't able to post up the follow up for the FLSD practical. That's what I'm gonna go over today. And I got a comment in the previous video regarding what to do with renewals. I kind of got. I'm just gonna touch on it briefly. If you have your license and everything is up to date, you have 364 days to renew without having to restart the entire process over again. However, if you're missing the active shooter or the EAP portions, you're gonna have to take those before you can renew. So that's something you all need to remember when it comes down to it. Everything is mandatory nowadays. There's no finagling or anything like that. You gotta have it. That's it. So what happens is they come in. The fire inspector will come in, and at this point, you just do not want to be distracted by anyone else. They'll fail you if they feel you're being distracted or if someone's attempting to assist you. So you got to make sure that when the fire inspector is there, your 100% undivided attention is given to the inspector. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Sometimes, people that are just walking by and start asking questions and things like that, just completely avoid that. Just focus on the inspector. Allow him to answer the questions if anyone has any. Do yourself that favor. Some of these inspectors are not the nicest people. But I found the ones that I've encountered have been really cool, but you never know who you're gonna get. All right, so the first thing, they're gonna explain all the rules of how everything goes, but long story short, you're gonna get hit with a fire scenario. The fire scenario is gonna be kind of like a non-specific scenario, but it's just gonna basically prove that you know what exactly needs to be done during a fire emergency. So in this case, like say they mentioned, okay, we got a fire on the floor above. The question would be stated something similar to this. You have a fire, a confirmed fire on the floor above. List all the steps that you will take and don't assume that something is done. List everything step by step by step. They're going to continue to enforce that you know that you are expected to know each and every portion of this section, because this is essentially why you're getting a license and essentially why you're getting paid more money, is because your knowledge, what's in here. Okay, so the fire scenario is extremely similar to there's another step in this, which is essentially the same as the fire scenario. The only difference is it's a little more specific. So they'll tell you it's on, say, the 4th floor, or the 5th floor, whatever, and they'll say, say something is compromised or whatever. But remember, no matter what, if it's a fire scenario, you're gonna go through these steps. I'm gonna go over them. And do remember, if you're trying to remember these things, it's probably best to try to associate it with something, like maybe what would an occupant in the building anticipate you would do? What would your boss anticipate for you to do? What would the fire department anticipate for you to do? What would guests and employees and your fire brigade, all everything that's entwined. If you start to go over it in your mind, and it will start to come to you. So we'll start from the beginning. You want to make sure that if you know that there's a fire, that the fire department has been notified. That should be the first thing that you do via cell phone, radio, whatever. You find a way to get in touch with them, and not by pulling the pull station. Because do remember, you could have a impairment, and that unit may not work, and you'll be depending on an alarm activating device that is not functioning. So you have to make sure you make that call via a cell phone, or when you get close to a telephone, you do it then. Okay. So secondly, just as important, you got to know where you do your business from. And where do you do your business from? The fire command station. Okay. So right away, you got to either report to the fire command station, man the fire command station. The words that you use is up to you, but essentially that's what you want. At this point is when you will start directing the evacuation as per the fire safety plan. That's just words you're going to use. After that, you'll describe what you're doing, okay? The fire safety plan is essentially a book that's put together that has all the floor plans and what to do in terms of an emergency, the egress routes, and types of equipment that you may have in your building, okay? So just to clarify what that might be. So you're gonna be at the command station, so you're gonna be expected to acknowledge the alarm, right? So when you get there, you'll see the screen will tell you what the alarm is, and you'll acknowledge it. So it's typically three functions. You either have a trouble, a supervisory, or an alarm. And at this point, you'll go to the machine and you acknowledge it. I don't know what the fire command station that you'll be working at is going to function like. Some of them have a separate acknowledge button. Some of them have a dual button that acts. It would say trouble, but it acknowledges the troubles, and it also would highlight that you do have a trouble. So there's different command stations that would be obviously up to you to figure out how your fire command station works, okay? And however, all of these things I'm going to go over will be in your command station regardless of what type it is. So you're going to check the devices that are activated. Check to see if there are any other additional devices. Like for example, you may have gotten an alarm from a smoke detector. That doesn't mean that a sprinkler head didn't pop. That doesn't mean that somebody didn't pull a pull station or whatever. So you need to make sure you look at the screen and determine what actuating devices are in the alarm, okay? You want to contact the floor wardens. The floor wardens are on each floor, and they are your liaison, and they are assisting in evacuating. They're essentially the head of the floor, and they report to you, the fire safety director. So since they're closest to the location, they'll try to investigate as long as it does not potentially affect their health. If they feel that their health is in danger, you have to ensure that you inform them that if at any point they don't feel safe, that they need to remove themselves from that environment and report it, so that way we can act on that. Afterwards, we want to activate and we want to send the fire brigade members to assist in that investigation, as well as assist in the evacuation. Your fire brigade member, so the difference between a fire brigade member and a floor warden, they perform similar functions, but the floor warden is on the floor, and the fire brigade member, and typically the floor wardens are tenants of a building that has multiple tenants. While a fire brigade member would be building staff. It could be an engineer, a cleaner, a security guard. Pretty much anybody who works in the building could be a part of the fire brigade staff, okay? And they wouldn't be on the floor. You would have to send them up. So when they hear the alarm, it's their responsibility to report to the fire command station also, or wait for your announcements, which will be coming up next. You're gonna inform the entire building. All building occupants need to be informed. So you're gonna do an all-call announcement. All fire command stations have the all-call function, okay? Then you're gonna inform the affected floors. Now the affected floors are the fire floor, the floor above, and the floor below. Newer fire command stations, it would automatically highlight the 3 floors that you need to speak to. But older ones, you may have to do that manually, or it may just activate the one above and the fire floor itself. So just be aware. Also, fire floor, just so you know, or the affected area, is consisted of those 3, that block, those 3 floors. Okay, so just keep in mind that that's what we're talking about when we see those types of that type of vocabulary. That's what that means. So you're gonna let the entire building know you have an alarm, and you would direct them where you feel they will be safe. So again, if they're 2 floors above where the fire is, you can relocate them to the other side of the building. But generally, they can stay put. You don't want to move them below, because what happens if there's a fire, that the fire breaks into the stairwell while people are going down the steps. So basically, if you don't need to move, you don't move. You stay where you are. And that's what the purpose is behind the second announcement, which is to make sure that those people that need to be moved, that they are aware that you are in imminent danger and you need to be moved and you need to take this staircase out to this place and, you know, go to the relocation area, and the fire, the floor warden would then reach the next area and contact the fire command station to ensure that we're updated with the status of the evacuation, okay? Now, you're gonna keep, you know, the constant communication with your brigade members and your floor wardens, and if it's appropriate, evacuate the floor above and the floor below to at least 3 floors below that current location, okay? And if it's on the 4th floor or lower, you evacuate outside. You have to make sure that your elevators have been recalled. You don't want elevators moving around when there's a potential fire or smoke condition. So this is something that you gotta make sure of before you allow, before you can go further. You have to make sure that all those things that I just mentioned, notify the fire department, man the fire command station, direct the evacuation as per the fire safety plan, acknowledge the alarm, check to see if there are any other devices, the location and type, contact floor wardens to investigate the cause, activate the fire brigade, and send them to investigate and assist in the evacuation, inform all building occupants of the conditions in the building, inform the affected floors of what they need to do, and if they need to evacuate, then that's what you will tell them, how to evacuate, the path that they take, the egress route, if you will. You're gonna make sure that the elevators have been recalled and that the HVAC is shut off. Remember, the HVAC is very important. On every fire command station, you'll see that you'll have a section for fans. There'll be return fans and supply fans. And the reason why this is so critical is because if you get smoke into your ductwork, it's gonna travel through the entire building, and you could potentially create a disastrous condition throughout the entire building by having smoke from something that's burning just traveling through the entire building. It would be really bad. So definitely you got to make sure that it's turned off. And if it's smoke, what if it's a chemical agent or some other thing where people could die from inhalation? So you just need to be aware of these kinds of things. So HVAC off, elevators recalled, and if it's on the 4th floor or lower, outside, okay? At this point, we're gonna prepare for the arrival of the fire department. So we're gonna make sure that the lobby entrance is clear. We don't want anyone getting in the way of the fire department's entry, so they need to move. The employees and visitors should be leaving the building, okay? They need to leave if they're leaving, or they, you know, we want to encourage them to leave because, you know, just to be safe. If they're in that area, in the lobby area, tell them to leave the building. If not, go inside the building, one or the other. You can't block the entrance. We want to make sure we get a building engineer at the fire command station, so that way when the fire department arrives, we have a responsible and knowledgeable person who's aware of the functions of the building, and you have the fire department be escorted by that building engineer. So that's the purpose of having that engineer down there. And you want to arrange your fire brigade member 1 floor below the fire, right? To be able to give proper status updates regarding the conditions on the floor, and to ensure safe evacuation of anyone, and also to lead the engineer and FDNY to the locations where they need to go. So the FDNY gets to the building, we want to report the conditions of the fire floor and the affected floors, right? You want to let them know what's the status, okay? So when we're talking about status, we'll get into that. So you want to tell them the location of the fire or smoke condition. You want to give them the number and the types of devices that are in alarm. You want to record the source, the location of fire information, and report it to FDNY. Was fire called in or reported by someone other than the alarm system? Okay, that's what that means. You want to inform the FDNY of several things, such as the status of the stairways, which stairwell was used for evacuation, which stairwells have standpipes, okay? The evacuation status, where is the relocation point? The elevator status, have they been recalled properly? HVAC status, they should be off. it's not often you have an impairment, but that's a whole other story. If you have impairments, another thing you need to let them know. For example, we don't have sprinkler coverage on a particular floor, and there should be. That's an impairment. You need to let them know, because then they're walking into a situation that is more dangerous than it would normally be. And then you want to let them know about unusual circumstances, such as a trapped occupant or a disabled person, or essentially someone with some form of a special need. You need to have the ability to inform them of that. You're going to need to provide them with the fire safety plans, the floor plans, the big card, that's the building information card, the master keys, and the elevator keys. If you require all of these keys, you have to make sure that there's a separate set of all of these items that I just listed set aside for when they do arrive. You just hand it over to them. Then once they do what they need to do, or once you have the conversation and they figure out that's unnecessary for them to continue to proceed, they'll direct you to silence and reset the alarm. You cannot silence and reset the alarm without the fire department's approval. They can take your license from you if you do this incorrectly. Okay? You acknowledge, and that's it. That's the end of what you're there to do. Silencing the alarm or resetting the system, don't do it. You just wait for them to arrive, and you do it when they tell you that you can do it. All right? When all of it is all said and done, okay, everyone is safe. We've discovered what the situation was. Everything is basically in order. We're going to record the fire in the logbook. There should be a separate logbook that you have for entries of activated alarms, maintenance, and other things. So you would put it into that logbook and make sure that it's properly done. This is going to be it for this particular section. I think I'm going to have to do more. I mean, there's definitely a lot more that I have to touch on. Impairment coordinator is one. That's a big one. If you don't get that one, you fail. Fire brigade member training. Again, that's another one. If you don't ace that one, you fail. You have floor warden training. Same thing. These are mandatory things. Now, within them, you can get certain things wrong, but if you don't accomplish the goal of being able to be effective at training someone, you will fail. So we're gonna go over all of this other stuff in a later video. This is the video for today. This is the fire scenario for your fire and life safety directors on-site examination. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section, subscribe, and let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to making this. This is probably going to end up being a multiple part series, because it's just so much stuff you got to go over. And let's see how this goes. If it goes well, I might look into doing the engineers thing. I don't know if you know this, but I am currently a refrigeration engineer, so I have knowledge, and I can probably help a lot of people get through these exams. So peace and love. This is Great Omega for Great on Life, and I'm out.